We can't rest. We can't rest just on legacy, just on history. As we reach this 100-year milestone, we're setting the pathway for the next 100 years. All of these people who work day in and day out to expand the mission of Xavier, what are we doing to make ourselves more competitive so that young people, when they're graduating high school, they say, I want to be a part of that.
From the Office of Institutional Advancement and Alumni Relations, it's Xavier Gold Live, the podcast, bringing you stories of leadership, impact, and the Xavier spirit. What's new, XU? I'm Tashia Hope.
And I'm Jalen Jones. We're both student journalists from Xavier's Mass Communications Department and are excited to bring you a podcast where we connect with our Xavier community through conversation.
In each episode, we bring you intimate interviews with standout alumni who will give us a glimpse into their unique Xavier experience.
Man, Homecoming 24 was definitely one for the books. We got to kick it with the alumni, connected with them on a deeper level. Tears were shed, there were giveaways, and don't even get me started on the barbecue.
Yes, Jay, like with it being my last homecoming as an undergrad, it really got me more excited than ever because it served as a reminder to me just being just an inch closer to that alumni status. And my feet are still recovering from Tailgate, but it was all worth it, and I wouldn't trade our homecoming for the world.
Yes, and we know this is my second HOCO. But is it always this lit?
Oh, you know we go big when we welcome our alumni home. It's so refreshing to be embraced by those who come before you. And then you get that insight on what's to be expected next in life. And you just get all of those gold nuggets of knowledge. You know, being up on that stage was just clarifying what this university was meant to do for me. And that's invest in my success as a Black woman. But enough of our homecoming recap.
Of course. Let's get into this episode of Xavier Gold Live, the Homecoming Edition, Volume 1.
We are live at the XU Homecoming, connecting with an alumnus from the class of 2004. But he's no stranger to the Louisiana scene in his role as state senator, where he's committed his career to fighting the fair fight, with policies representing the needs of the very community we live in.
From his work on criminal justice reform to championing economic and educational opportunities, his efforts reflect the very core values of Xavier's mission.
And some of these efforts look like advocating to end solitary confinement for juveniles and ensuring perinatal mood disorder screenings for caregivers.
Let's welcome Senator Royce Duplessis to the Xavier Gold Live podcast.
Would you like to shout out anybody, or would you like to just jump right into it?
Definitely class of 2004. We're going to start there for sure. But to all Xavierites, it's great to be here. Yes. Homecoming. I think folks are probably still waking up from last night because I know this is going to look much different in a few hours. This whole scene is going to look much different. But thank y'all so much for having me.
Of course, yes. And what brings you to homecoming? I know it's your 20th year class reunion.
Yeah, this is my 20th year, so I would have been out here at some point today.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I'm out here with you all.
Yeah.
Mass comm majors, which I was as well. I was a communications major, so great to see y'all doing the podcast and honored that y'all invited me to be here.
Yes, and thank you so much for just taking the time to connect with us. So we're going to jump right into it.
We know how detrimental government illiteracy can be to our community. How do you approach influencing individuals who may not have a deep understanding of the legislative process?
So I think it's important to try to meet people where they are on whatever level we're doing. We're talking about voter engagement. Voter education is key, and I think that's a big contributing factor to why we have so many people who choose not to participate in the process. It's not because people don't necessarily want to. I think you have a lot of people who choose to not participate because they're frustrated with the process, but I think a lot of people choose not to participate simply because they don't know. And we don't always do the best job of educating the community on the issues, the legislative process. There can be like this huge separation. So I work in Baton Rouge primarily on the issues that I work for on behalf of my district, which is here in New Orleans. Actually, I have the privilege of representing Xavier University as part of my Senate district, but a lot of people don't know things that we work on up there. So I try to show up, be in the community, send out mailers, newsletters, and just try to talk about these issues in a way that the everyday person can understand and not get caught up in all of the weeds of policy making, right? People want to know, how does it impact their lives? And I think that's the way I try to communicate on all the issues that I work on, so that people can see the connection between legislative policy and how it directly impacts their lives.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And speaking of impact, you focus in on the importance of equal representation during your candidacy. How has this fueled the opportunities you presented to district's communities?
Equal representation is everything. One person, one vote.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I think a lot of people choose not to participate, because they think their vote doesn't matter. So people who don't see others who look like them, or people who don't share their interests or share their values, they say, well, why should I vote? Because you don't represent me in my community. So going back to the question around equal representation, Louisiana, we just fought for a second black congressional district, because the state of Louisiana is made up of 33% African American, but of 6 congressional seats, we only had 1 that was majority black. And we led the fight to get a second one this past legislative process. And just on November 4th, we had that new congressperson was elected. So now Louisiana has 2 black congressional representatives and not just 1. So that was a big victory that all the people of Louisiana should be proud of.
And I feel like that really speaks to being the change that you want to see, setting those goals that you want to attain. And so with your wide-ranging expertise and involvement and numerous policies that we see implemented in Louisiana, like your health initiative in developing the Louisiana Maternal Mental Health Task Force, how do you tailor solutions specific to a community's needs and maintain that balance amongst like what needs to be prioritized?
The disparities are glaring, and Louisiana is not unique with respect to maternal health outcomes, especially for black women. Black women are 4 times more likely to die as a result of childbirth than their white counterparts. And Louisiana in particular, we're doing not as good as we should. This is a real issue that impacts all healthcare, but particularly black women, and I just felt a responsibility. So we set up the task force, and I think the way we try to do it is we take expert input, working with healthcare providers, working with community advocates, listening to people, and working on issues around implicit bias. That's a huge issue in our healthcare system, and it's not an easy thing to unpack, but the data is clear. One of the areas that I've been trying to lean in on is particularly the issue around maternal health, maternal mortality, postpartum depression, postpartum perinatal anxiety. And we put a policy in place 2 years ago based on some legislation I did that would require screenings for new moms who just delivered around perinatal anxiety, because that's a big issue that goes undetected and untreated. And the health of the child is directly related to the health of the mother and vice versa.
Yes, and I love how you said you felt like it was your responsibility,
Yes.
especially within the role and the power that you have to actually, make that change.
Yes.
And we want to relate that to the youth. We notice your passion for the youth and that you prove your love for people. What can we expect in your next agenda?
Well, I wouldn't say my next agenda. I'd say my current agenda, right, has always been focused on trying to uplift our young people, certainly protecting our seniors and those who are most vulnerable. Volunteering and mentoring young people was really what led me into public service. I was a mentor with an organization called the Silverback Society. I coached Little League, basketball, and just always been about trying to make sure our young people are getting what they need. And every year I try to find money for New Orleans Recreation Department and making sure that young people have the resources to go out and be their best selves. So that wouldn't be anything new for me. It would just be trying to expand upon what I've been doing.
And speaking of the youth, I think you're not too far from me because, black don't crack, okay?
Hey, look,
I will say that.
Thank you, because look, when I think about 20 years having graduated, I'm like, wow, it goes by fast. So I appreciate still being considered on some of the younger side of things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's time to take a blast from the past. Come with us down memory lane, where we will be revisiting your time here at Xavier. Do we have any class of 04 in the house still? Can I hear some noise?
Any class of 04?
Okay, I see y'all in the back.
Who that?
All right. The year is 2000, and Xavier's yard is packed with pop collars and polo shirts. Now, remember, this is around the time where you've chosen XU, or do you feel like Xavier chose you?
Xavier definitely chose me. You know, because originally, when I graduated high school, I was, at the time, not planning to go to Xavier. I had been accepted into a couple of other HBCUs that, you know, I will not mention, but it was really a last-minute set of circumstances that landed me at Xavier that I'm not going to bore y'all with, but let me just say, it ended up being the best thing to happen to me, and it really wasn't what I initially planned, so Xavier definitely chose me.
Outside of those circumstances, what would you say that selling point was at Xavier that was like, okay, I'm going to go here then?
The history, the legacy, very rich. I had a lot of family members who attended Xavier, and I was inspired by that, right? And I say that, like my dad, he was a Dillard guy, as was my grandmother. My grandmother was Miss Dillard. But I had other family members who went to Xavier. And I did Math Star, Chem Star, all of those things, Bio Star. When I was in high school, we used to always be up at Xavier. I'm from New Orleans, so we just always had a reverence for this institution and the legacy of Xavier. So it wasn't that hard of a decision for me.
We want to discuss like your 4 years of undergrad. We want to know which classification year did you thrive in the most?
Definitely my senior year. And I see Miss Marion Menard over here. She was in Office of Career Services. So it was definitely my senior year because that year, I used to go to her office all the time and say, you know, you have any good internship opportunities or anything that I should be doing? And it was in the fall, she told me to apply for an internship with Entergy. And that led to a spring internship that ultimately led to a job waiting for me at the time of graduation. So it was a great year. My senior year was definitely the year where things just all really came together for me.
Yeah, and that speaks to the Xavier community because, you know, there's always somebody there ready to mentor you or guide you into whatever that next chapter of your life will be.
And I had fun all 4 years, let me be clear, but year 4 was the year where I decided that it was, you know, time to really get ready for that.
Lock in.
Yeah, that departure.
So speaking of the fun, give us just like a core XU memory that you can't escape.
Well, if you were at Xavier during that time, well, I guess it's not here. See Bronson LaFrance over there.
Hey.
There was a club, I guess it was right over here, called Rhythm City. Y'all remember Rhythm City? And we would walk. You could walk across the bridge and just go right here to Rhythm City. And I lived not too far down the street. I wouldn't say it was walking distance, but yeah, if you were here during that time, you definitely remember Rhythm City. And I think they changed the name to Rockefeller 2.5 or something like that. Maybe that was after Katrina, but during those years, it was Rhythm City. You know about it.
A club right in your backyard, technically.
Yes, sir. And we noticed that the class banquet was yesterday, last night, and y'all had class photos, right?
We did.
So you mentioned your peers over here. How did it feel to be surrounded by black excellence?
Let me say this. Having gone to an HBCU, homecoming is always like nourishment for the soul.
Yeah.
And it's really like a spiritual experience, you know, being a part of homecoming, I think at any HBCU, but especially for Xavier, because I'm close to the campus just in physical proximity, because I don't live far away. But it's different when you come here for homecoming and you get to see people who you haven't seen in 10, 15, 20 years, and you see how well people are doing. And you're reminded why you came to Xavier, because people are now living out their dreams of being doctors and being professionals in whatever business that they're in, seeing them with their families, seeing how far they've come and all the wonderful things that they're doing. So it's special. There's really no way to describe it.
Yeah, and we can see that Xavier impact just within your character.
Yeah. Glad I made the class photo, by the way, too. It was,
yeah. Gotta get those memories. How have you looked back on the lessons learned here at Xavier and applied them to your role as senator?
Well, when I think about the mission of Xavier and preparing young people for service and global leadership, that applies to everything I do every day when I walk out of my house as a state senator, as an attorney. It's about service. It's about leadership. It's about representing that Xavier brand of excellence. So that has always been instilled in me since my days at Xavier, and I try to carry that in everything that I do. The campus has grown significantly since the time that I was here. We didn't have the Convocation Center and a lot of other buildings. None of this was here. So that speaks to how far Xavier has grown and how much it continues to grow. And now as we reach our 100-year centennial, you see what Xavier means to the community and what it means to this nation. And for me to play a small role in that is inspiring and it's motivating for me personally.
To build upon that, we've discussed Xavier's past, how much this came about, basically. So let me quote you for a second. It says, "It's time to stop talking and immediately do what's necessary for people to thrive. As a man of action, you know what it means to press forward and fear nothing." What are your hopes for Xavier's future as it continues to do what's necessary for its students to thrive?
That we can't rest. We can't rest just on legacy. We can't rest just on history. That as we reach this 100-year milestone, we're setting the pathway for the next 100 years. So everything has to be forward-looking. The past is just a guide, but we cannot rest. I think sometimes when you have a rich legacy and a rich history, you kind of can rest on that history. But this is a very competitive world, and we have to continue to compete and to show young people across the world why they should come to Xavier. And that's going to come through seeing you all and what you all do when you leave Xavier, what you're doing right now, and everybody who has a part of investing in not just the bricks and mortar, but what's being taught in these classrooms, the professors, the Office of Institutional Advancement, all of these people who work day in and day out to expand the mission of Xavier. What are we doing to make ourselves more competitive so that young people, when they're graduating high school, they say, I want to be a part of that? And that comes through a lot. We have to give back as alumni. We got to fundraise. We got to do all the things. But I think it's always about being competitive.
Absolutely. Well, Jay, I think it's that time. Do you think it's that time?
Tashaya, I think it is about that time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we would now like to welcome you to this section of our podcast called The Live Five. Senator Duplessis, we will ask you 5 questions that we think the Xavier community would love to know. So, when you're ready to go, let me know.
I hope so. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Number 1, most memorable homecoming moment.
Oh, wow. I've never been on a podcast for homecoming, so it's definitely going to be this one.
What was the best way to stay cool back in the day?
Find some Gatorade. I don't know.
All right. No, number 3, Facebook or MySpace?
Neither.
Okay, neither. Okay. So,
Yeah.
Can you give us one song that defines your tenure at Xavier?
Woo. Probably a Soldier Slim song, huh?
Soldier Slim. Fill in the blank. One thing no one knows why I attended Xavier is
that I was the photo editor for the Xavier Herald. Me and my brother Terrence King right here, who helped set all of this up, worked on the Xavier Herald together.
Yes, sir.
And Leslie, yeah, we spent a lot of evenings in the Xavier Herald room. A lot of people don't know that.
all right.
Yeah, I currently write for the Herald.
All right, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That wraps up our section of the podcast called The Live Five.
And Senator, it was just a pleasure connecting with you again. Outstanding alumnus, connecting with us and bridging that gap between students and alumni. So how can our growing gold community keep up with you?
First of all, thank y'all for having me.
Of course.
Y'all inspire me, and I'm just proud of y'all for doing this, for y'all's leadership, and to see everything that y'all are going to do. I'm on social media. I'm relatively active on Instagram. That's probably the most. Facebook, I'm there too. I have a presence on all of those platforms, but Royce_Duplessis on IG. But in terms of getting in touch with me, I'm easy to find. You can text me, call me, email me, whatever works.
You also have a website.
Yeah, RoyceDuplessis.com. Yep. And I love to engage on different issues related to policy at the state level, but just issues that are going on in the community. So if I can be available of service, especially when it comes to Xavier, y'all call on me.
Everybody give it up for Senator Royce Duplessis.
Yes.
Thank you. XU, thank you. Thank y'all for having me. Happy homecoming.
Thank you for tuning in to the Xavier Gold Live podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Now, XU, you know what to do. Join our growing gold community on the first Tuesday of every month.
This podcast is available to listen to wherever you listen to your podcast. Do us a favor by subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show today. Make sure to also follow us on social media and subscribe to our monthly newsletter.
This is Xavier Gold Live, the podcast where Xavier's legacy comes to life.